Consta, thanks for joining me today. So we had a chat the other day about attribution, and you said some really interesting stuff that I thought was worth sharing. So I wanted to have a chat, ask you some questions as an attribution expert. And just to frame it, I'd like to talk about SaaS and PLG, because that's what I'm mostly interested in and help my clients. But yeah, first, just a couple of sentences, maybe introduce yourself.
Hi, Oren. Thank you for inviting me. So my name is Constantine. I am CEO and founder of SegmentStream. So SegmentStream is a marketing intelligence platform that helps companies with complex sales cycles to optimize their marketing and advertising campaigns. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So great to have you. So complex sales cycles. So yeah, this is very common. You've got a B2B, especially in enterprise, you have multiple people in the decision buying committee. You've got a long sales cycle. It gets quite tricky to understand where to put your money in different channels. So what's your view on this? What's your philosophy on the sales cycle? Why is it such a hard problem to solve?
This problem is mostly solved by many attribution platforms for e-commerce, for D2C brands, where you have online sales, where you go to the website, you have a predictable funnel, you browse listing, you go to the product page, you add something to cart, you go through the checkout process and eventually make a purchase, and that's it. Money in your bank, you see money in your bank account, you can immediately attribute revenue to the specific session. While with SaaS, with PLG, with SLG, it's much more complex. So first of all, with SLG, you usually see revenue with a huge delay in time. So you might have someone come into your website, convert as a lead, trap into your CRM, and then sales team starts nurturing this lead, they initiate sales process, and eventually this lead converts in 6 months, sometimes in 12 months. But for proper marketing analytics and for proper ad campaigns optimization, you need to have a feedback signal today. You cannot wait 6 months or 12 months to understand whether your campaign is working or not. You cannot wait for 6 months before you send a feedback signal for optimization back to Facebook, back to LinkedIn, back to Google. That's why such businesses are much more complex. On the other side, we have PLG, where where customer journey is very complex. You have freemiums, sometimes you have free trials, you have different pricing plans, monthly pricing plans, annual pricing plans. Sometimes you have possibility to upgrade from freemium to paid plan. And usually when you optimize your marketing, you're not optimizing towards getting revenue here and now, because usually software service model is built based on some payback periods. So you invest now, but you're gonna get revenue within 6 months, sometimes 1 year, hopefully not longer, but sometimes it happens. And again, when you do your marketing, yes, now you've got a subscription, which is $50 per month, but you've paid, cost per acquisition is $150. The question is whether this subscription going to bring you enough revenue during the next 6 months to service is when PLG and SLG is blended together. So you have both. You have self-serve pricing plans, freemiums, but at the same time you have enterprise sales with salespeople working on huge deals. So this is usually very complex problem to solve in terms of marketing analytics and optimization.
Yes, I mean, it's worth saying that it's been very interesting, like seeing how organizations go from a sales-led SLG into a product-led growth motion, a PLG, and then a product-led sales, the PLS, which is this hybrid. And really the hybrid, for anyone who's listening who's not familiar, if someone starts using your product, they're getting engagement, the sales team are looking at them, they're engaging and using it more, and then there's an opportunity based on their engagement score to reach out to them, to try and upsell or cross-sell them to another solution. And I think that this product-led sales is going to be the future of a lot of SaaS businesses, because it's easier to sell someone something when they've experienced benefit, and their engagement and behavioral score is a very strong indicator of that propensity and probability. Well, so I'm quite curious about this this attribution. I'm in a lot of marketing communities, and I'd say attribution is one of the biggest pains that marketers have. And attribution's been around for a while. I mean, we had last touch attribution, first touch attribution. We've got linear, position-based. I mean, Google Analytics has had attribution models for the last 15, 20 years, as far as I can remember. Why is this still a thing? Why is attribution still an issue?
Yeah, I would say for software as a service, for both PLG and SLG, attribution is a secondary problem. So primary problem is, what exactly do you plan to attribute? And in many cases, because of this huge delays in understanding the actual revenue from particular lead or even initial subscription from a customer or a potential customer, you don't know exactly, you have only a lead or initial purchase. And of course, what we see that most of the companies, they just optimize towards a number of leads or to the first purchase, which in many cases is not indicative of true profitability or true value of particular customer or particular lead. And the goal here first is to transform the conversion itself. Like, what exactly are you tracking? So first problem, primary problem, is to understand what is your primary conversion. And for many companies, it's just number of leads. And this way you can get huge amount of low quality leads from specific regions that do not convert or where you have low average order value. And what we found is that you cannot wait for 3 or 6 months to understand whether campaigns are working or not. And in this case, you need to predict, you need to properly score. So that's why we call the technology that we use for such companies lead scoring or LTV scoring. And the idea here is when you acquire a lead, you need to know approximately what is the value of this lead. And right now you send like hundreds of signals to Facebook, and Facebook just tries to maximize. And if for some reason Facebook sees that it's easier to acquire leads from India compared to leads from US, even though leads from India might be converting at much lower rate with lower average order value, Facebook will do exactly what Facebook is told to do, will maximize number of leads. Once you start quantifying the value of these leads, the picture changes. So what we usually do, we connect to CRM data, historical CRM data, like HubSpot, Salesforce. We pull information about all the leads from different user parameters like country, region, which product they applied for, what was the initial pricing plan they subscribed, what their initial engagement with the product, whether they are from big company or small company. And actually right now you've mentioned AI. It's very easy to score leads and actually pull additional information from external sources about the company, whether there are like just 10 people in this company or 1,000 people. And we pull all these parameters, and then we build a model where we can understand how leads with different parameters eventually convert into actual revenue. And then what happens, whenever you get a lead on the website, we can immediately predict the future value of this lead. So when lead comes from US, from a big company with 1,000+ users from particular industry, for example, learning and development or banking, we can predict, okay, the future value of this lead is $1,000. When lead comes from India, from some non-relevant business, or it might be that the company is small, has just 30 people, we can predict that future value for this lead is just $50. And now, instead of sending just signal about the lead, we send back information about lead value. So for some leads, we send $1,000 value. For some leads, we send $10 value back to Facebook and back to Google. And now you can implement value-based optimization, and now you can implement target ROAS optimization. And now Facebook and Google will be prioritizing high-value leads and would be willing to pay much more for these leads compared to other leads. So I believe this is the first step. So once this step is solved, now attribution is a secondary problem, because once you imagine we have a lead and we evaluated that lead value is $1,000, the question is, to which channel do we attribute this lead? Because in many cases, due to long consideration periods, long sales cycles, people come to the website many times from different browsers, from different devices, especially in B2B. They send links to each other. For example, you might find a great product, and then you send the link to the colleague, and colleague can eventually sign up for a trial or for a demo. So this is cross-user, cross-device, cross-browser, cross-cookie journey. So the question is, even once you have a good, high-quality signal, a conversion, which channel would you be willing to attribute this conversion to? And this is where our visit scoring attribution comes into play. So the biggest difference between visit scoring attribution and any other traditional attribution is that it's not based on cookies. So all traditional attribution tools, you track a conversion, and then you try to stitch it back to all touch points within the same device, within the same browser, because all attribution models are based on cookies. With SegmentStream, we approach this a little bit differently. So instead of trying to stitch it deterministically, we stitch it probabilistically. So we understand whether any other visits from the same region, from the same city, that were interested in the same product, that behaved the same way before from other devices and browsers. And if we observe such behaviors and we can stitch them probabilistically, and there is a high probability that this is the same user, and of course our model might not be always right. But when big numbers play, like when you play with big numbers, with statistics, eventually if you're going to be able to predict 100 users who have 20% probability to buy, statistically it's the same that you just got 20 users who made a purchase with 100% probability. Just on big numbers it plays out. But this way you can understand this all upper funnel activities and how they contribute towards lower funnel purchases with a probabilistic approach. And this is very important, especially with B2B, because we ourselves work with B2B clients, and we know that they visit our website so many times, they engage with our brand so many times, they read our articles, they read our blog, they check our pricing by many people within the company. And eventually someone comes from directly, or from our brand campaign, and they just fill the form, and we see, okay, now we have a lead in HubSpot, and this lead comes from direct, and we don't have any information about the initial touch point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you said there. So I want to touch on a few of them. So you mentioned ROAS, which is return on advertising spend. And obviously optimizing for ROAS is when you're interested in getting a return on your marketing spend. But and if you're a bootstrap business, that's sensible. But a lot of businesses are in a growth mode, and it's not really about ROAS as much as just net conversion volume. But even with net conversion volume, getting more leads that are of lower quality doesn't serve the goal of the business, which is to drive gross revenue and get market share. So it's interesting for marketers listening to think about, what are you really optimizing for? Are you optimizing for conversion volume or for ROI, which is closer to profitability? And I think it's very interesting what's happening.
Yeah, I think both are important. If you're a VC-backed business, yes, your ROAS might be much lower compared to some bootstrap business, but still you have some financial model and some unit economy under the hood. It might be that your investors might not be happy if you buy a customer with lifetime value of $50 and you buy it for $5,000.
Yeah.
So still some reasonable ROAS should be considered when you optimize. But of course, you've mentioned that high quality leads are also important. If you just waste all your advertising budget on low quality leads that never convert, that churn fast, and that are not your relevant customers, of course, you're not going to be growing as fast as you would love to grow.
Yes. My recommendation or preference is cost of customer acquisition to lifetime value, CAC LTV ratio. which gives you that ratio of, am I paying $5,000 to acquire $50 customer, or really I should be paying a third of what a customer's worth? And also payback window, because I think that impacts cash flow and growth rate for the business, especially with ambitious businesses who have a short-term time horizon for an exit. The businesses I work with, they're VC-backed or bootstrapped. They're trying to exit in the next 3 to 5 years. That's very common.
In many cases, LTV is still a very abstract metric because it's more like a guesstimate. To know real LTV, you need to have a cohort of clients who already worked with you, for example, for 5 years. And only after that, you should take this cohort and say, oh, now we have LTV. But this LTV is already delayed in time for at least 5 years, because it might be that now your LTV is very different. So that's why I would still stick to payback period and to have some rationale around, like, if I invest $50 now, how soon I want to get this money back. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. But I wouldn't go, usually I wouldn't recommend to go for periods bigger than 1 year, because it requires a delay in data. If you optimize towards a payback period of more than 1 year, we will be able to build lead scoring and LTV scoring model only on the data that is at least 1 year old. For any data which is fresh, just 6 months old, we still don't know how much revenue customers from this cohort gonna bring. So that's why 6 months is optimal.
Yeah, I got it. So it's not, and just thinking it through, it's not only about having the 3 to 5 years of historical data. You need enough data. You need enough, because if you have like 5 customers in 5 years, that's not the same as like 50,000 customers to get statistical probability, right? So I think that's an interesting point. There was something else you said I thought was quite fascinating. So when I think about sending the signal, which is critical to Meta or Google Ads, LinkedIn isn't quite there yet, and you want to make sure you're attracting a similar high quality prospect to the ones that you're sending in the signal. What's curious to me is you need enough data to send that signal through. Like even before the API integration into these platforms enabled the signal-based optimization, you'd have to, for CPA targeting, cost per acquisition based targeting, you needed to wait to get 50 conversions in a week before the Google algorithm would kick in. What happens with an enterprise motion? Like if I have an annual contract value of 100, 150K, 500K customers, and I have my account executives, I have my SDRs, but in reality, I'm only dealing with maybe 15, 20 high quality prospects a month. I don't have the same amount of data like a Monday or Notion or a PLG play, a product-led growth play, SaaS, that has this engine running that's getting a huge amount, like 500 leads a day. Do you think that these type of businesses can still benefit from investing in an attribution solution like this, even if they have much larger deals? Like, because I talk to those businesses and they have a really hard time understanding how to allocate their marketing budget. And they tell me often, I've done events, I've done cold outbound, I've done cold calling, I've done LinkedIn, and nothing works. And they don't know why it doesn't work. And part of that is it's not entirely an attribution problem, but attribution is part of that issue or challenge they have. So what are your thoughts on these larger businesses, more complex, very large deals? Can they still benefit from this?
Yes. So there are businesses that sell to enterprises with a higher order value, but there are two different scales. So you have business that is small and has small number of leads. For example, 100 leads per month, and definitely it won't be possible to build a good smart bidding. It won't be possible to build a good lead scoring model because it's just not enough data. Of course, there might be some distinguishment between different regions, geolocations, etc., but still, it's not enough data. When we're talking about huge enterprises that have a lot of leads, even though they sell to big companies as well. For example, they have thousands of leads. Of course, this is where it comes into play, and you can build a very robust, a very good lead scoring model, feed the signals back to ad platforms, and optimize. And I just wanted to add about the signals that you feed into ad platforms. You've mentioned that platforms need these signals to build internal lookalike audiences to target the best possible potential customers, similar to those who converted with a higher predicted value or higher LTV. So this is a main reason why we send signals to ad platforms, for better targeting. But also, the second important reason why we send value to ad platforms is to distinguish that you can bid differently for different customers. Because if you just average LTV out or just average our lead, we value our lead. We can pay $1,000 for one lead. It's average. Or on average, our LTV is $500, so we can pay up to $500 to acquire a new subscriber. This is average. But when you start quantifying these leads, and for this user, we are willing to pay $1,000, but for this, we are willing to pay just $20 because we predict that value from this lead will be very low. And the biggest issue with most of software as a service companies with mobile apps or someone who is doing lead generation business or LTV-based business, that they use average just to understand how much are we ready to pay for a customer. When you need to be more dynamic and you need to send these dynamic values to ad platforms, and this way, with your target ROAS or just maximize volume strategy, ad platform will decide itself how much it's going to be paying for particular user, and it will be paying more for customers with higher predicted value, and it will pay much lower price for customers with low predicted value.
So when you structurally implement this signal into, say, Meta or Google Ads, do you have different campaigns with different creatives for the different segments that you send a different value to? Because I'd assume if you have a segment that's worth $50 a month and a segment that's worth $5,000 a month, and it's the same product but different feature set, you need to probably have a different creative talking about different problems. So typically clients you work with, is that what they're doing? Are they segmenting creative and campaign for each signal that they send through?
Yeah, exactly. It's if you target absolutely different audiences to different products. For example, you might be selling the same software, but one pricing plan is for enterprise, for huge businesses. Another software part is for individuals, and those are absolutely two different audiences. You should be doing not just different creatives and not just different ad sets, but ideally you would be doing different campaigns, not to confuse machine learning models of ad platform, because ad platform tries to blend the audience and it builds machine learning model not only on creative level or at group level, but also at campaign level, at account level, at conversion level. So whenever audiences are very different and path to conversion is very different, you should be always creating separate conversions and optimizing differently for different events and for different customer journeys.
So I guess I have a couple of more questions before we wrap up. So a big challenge that marketers I speak to constantly is I can't get my CEO to sign this off. So what would you say is the minimum either marketing budget in terms of media or traffic as a criteria for a marketer listening who wants to evaluate investing in a solution like this?
We have some ballpark numbers. For example, for e-commerce, we say we work with brands who invest at least $50K a month on advertising, minimum. But for software as a service business, for enterprise businesses, budgets sometimes might be not that big, but the deal size is huge. The impact is huge. You might have many leads. So mostly I would say any machine learning and any scoring technology is limited by the number of conversions you have. So probably our technology won't be suited for businesses who have less than 100 conversions per month, and probably not going to be suited for those who have less than 300. But once you have 500,000 or thousands of conversions, this is where we can already apply technology, machine learning, predict the value, and more importantly, what is the ROI of this? If you are able to get 5 additional enterprise deals that are going to convert at 100K, probably it's not about the budget, it's about the value that you're going to get by optimizing your ad campaigns toward driving more high value customers on your website.
Great. So Consta, we're at time for today. What would you, if someone wants to find out more about attribution, learn more about the tool, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn, follow my newsletter, reach out to me. And of course, check our website with all the solutions we propose for different businesses with complex customer journeys and sales cycles.
Right. Consta, I really appreciate you taking the time today. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.